When I decided to try out One Piece, I was very hesitant to think that this could ever be one of my favorites, or even that I would overall enjoy the experience. My expectations were very, very low, and that was just based on things my friends had told me about it and various clips and pictures that I'd seen all over social media. I just didn't think it was going to be a home run with me. Plus, it's so long. So my plan was to read Volume 1, maybe Volume 2, and get some impressions, make a video, talk about One Piece, and I was fully prepared to find that One Piece was not the story for me, not the manga series for me. I thought it was going to be too lighthearted, naively optimistic, shallow possibly, and honestly, I expected to hate Luffy. But then I read Volume 1, and then I read Volume 2. What I'm trying to say is that I was wrong about One Piece. Not only was I wrong, but now I'm all in, baby. I'm Jimmy Nuts, and you're watching Dudes Talking Manga. We do long-form conversations breaking down mangas volume by volume, sometimes arc by arc, and then we have videos like this as well. And this is going to be a complete overview of what I thought about the East Blue Saga and all the arcs that it contains. I'm going to be doing it more from a character perspective in the crew and kind of touching on events that I thought was amazing. After this video, I will be going arc by arc through One Piece because I did have a fabulous time with East Blue, and that will make the videos a little bit more detailed and be a little bit more chronological. This one's going to be much more of an overview of my initial thoughts of characters and, you know, the impactful moments in East Blue. One Piece slowly but surely started to peel back and cripple a lot of my biases as I read through all of East Blue. I actually considered stopping halfway through East Blue Saga to make a video like this, but I could not put this down. Despite being someone who does love dark fantasy and pessimistic stories, see the Berserk shirt and many other dark fantasy stuff that I enjoy, I found myself smiling, laughing, and actually having a great time with Luffy and the crew that he was obtaining while sailing around on the Going Merry. Don't get me wrong, the story is lighthearted and there are times where it's so silly and optimistic, but there is more than meets the eye with One Piece. It is never insulting in its optimistic tone where it feels just not human. By the end of East Blue Saga, you realize that this is a story of gigantic goals, of marvelous motivations, and overcoming the outrageous. But at its core, when you strip away the world building, the lore, the ridiculousness of it, there is a human element at the core of this story that I actually think is captured very, very well. And these fight scenes are just so damn good. One Piece at times can feel wacky, and when you have someone like Monkey D. Luffy with his stretchy arms and his gum abilities, that's going to happen. But I found it, instead of kind of being off-putting, I found it to be endearing and part of its charm, actually. His undying perseverance to pursue this goal of being a pirate king and never taking no for an answer. And also maybe being too honest to a fault. I'm thinking when him and Usopp are at the top of the cliff and he's like, hey, don't kill Kaya. And Usopp's like, what? What are you doing, dude? Stop. They're going to know we're here. It was moments like that that made me feel something for Luffy and actually feel slightly motivated. His gum abilities allow so much creativity in the fights. And my favorite, my favorite Luffy moment, other than whenever he puts the straw hat on Nami towards the end of East Blue, which was just like jaw-dropping moment where it's like, holy crap. Outside of that, I really love the gum ability of stretching his neck out of the water in Arlong Park so that he didn't drown because his body was stuffed underwater. It's little things like that that make what would seem almost childish abilities something really special and creative. Luffy is obsessed with his goal, but you can tell that he is not going to leave other people in the dust. He is going to build them up with him, and they are going to hopefully achieve their goals as he goes towards his. And that makes him a lovable character. The Romance Dawn arc really exposed this about Luffy whenever you see him meet Kobe. And Kobe is maybe the opposite, maybe a little too timid to go and chase his dreams, but he really sees that Luffy is about that life and that Luffy is going to obtain this by any means necessary. And I think it has a profound impact on Kobe. And I love their interactions. I love the changing of Kobe and him coming into his own and then going off to do what he wants to do. I guarantee we're going to see Kobe a little bit later. And I think the impact that Luffy had on him in the Romance Dawn arc is going to be evident. And I can't wait to see him again. So Luffy absolutely destroyed my expectations and flipped everything on its head. And that's when I knew I was in for a good time. But really the specialness of the series is with the crew. So let's talk about them and talk about what I thought of each crewmate and also their backstories and big plot moments in East Blue. Right off the bat, we get to meet Zoro, who is hoping to be the greatest swordsman that ever was. And I love the three sword style, holding a sword in the mouth. This is that wackiness that I'm talking about, but I was here for it. And who doesn't want to get behind an excellent swordsman, kind of like a Barristan Selmy in A Song of Ice and Fire. I thought the three sword style was awesome. And on top of that, I love the bounty hunters that we meet, which is Johnny and Yosaku. They were just so ridiculous, and I loved how they called everyone brother. It was like they were imitating Hulk Hogan, or they had learned how to communicate watching his old wrestling tapes, calling, "Hey, brother." I love that piece. Zoro's backstory gives him so much more to his character than just wanting to be, someone that's just a bad dude. An orphan that's training at a dojo. Kuina and Zoro's relationship is one that I found touching and endearing, and knowing that he wants to go off and be the best swordsman he can be for her, who does not have that opportunity. Not only just because she is a girl, but because she's dead. Did anyone else find it a little bit suspicious that she fell down some stairs and died? I don't know if I buy that. Seems a little sus. I wonder if we'll get a little bit more of that in the future. Don't tell me down in the comments, by the way. I want to go into this as blind as possible. Also very interesting in Zoro's arc here in East Blue to see Tashigi come out to play, who is basically completely opposed to Zoro, but doesn't realize it to the very end of Rogue Town arc. And also the fact that she reminds him of Kuina is probably going to matter down the line. We'll probably see her again as well. The thing that I love the most about Zoro's entire arc in East Blue actually was his battle with Mihawk. Mihawk is a legend. He is the swordsman that Zoro can kind of aspire to be like. And the fact that he got his butt kicked is actually pretty cool. We don't see him just ascend. We're going to see setbacks. These people are going to fail forward in their goals. And Zoro, maybe most of all, especially here, taking just an absolute beating from Mihawk. Also, the injuries from the battles actually matter. People aren't just coming back full tilt, which is something that I always liked in Dragon Ball Z, though the Sensu beans kind of give you a little bit of a way around that. The battles matter and the injuries matter, and I really love that. We need to know more about these swords, though. These swords that are mentioned whenever Tashigi and Zoro are talking in Rogue Town. We hear there's like 2 tiers of mystical swords, and they want to collect them all. All in on magical swords. Zoro is my favorite crewmate at this point. Nami was the next person to join Luffy's crew on the Going Merry, and in my opinion has the best backstory of these first 4 or 5 people, and actually has the best moment in all of East Blue. She's a thief. She's stealing this stuff from pirates, the treasure, and I love that treasure means something different to each crewmate, it seems. Like their goals are different, but also what treasure can mean to them, more deeply, is really intriguing. She has been stealing and saving up, creating maps for Arlong Park, which, by the way, her turning out to be a part of Arlong Park's crew blew my mind. Great twist. There's a ton of them in here, but this is one of the better ones. And we are at Kokoyasi Village, which is where she grew up with her adopted sister underneath her adopted mother. I love the relationship there, but ultimately she is stealing this treasure because she wants to free her village. The backstory with her stepsister Nojiko and then Belmare is the highlight of East Blue, and this is where I decided that I was in love with One Piece. This is when I ordered the next box set, honestly. This is my favorite part of all of East Blue. The adopted sister sharing a tattoo at the end of this arc. The townspeople willing to die for their village and for their people. There's something that felt believable in that. Like, I actually felt that in my heart. And then there is nothing more impactful. And one of the most impactful things I've read in quite some time than the rotating pinwheel at Belmare's grave as the Going Merry is starting its voyage. I just sat in silence when I finished that panel. That was so impactful. I even got a little bit misty-eyed, and that was the best moment in the East Blue Saga for me. This was a beautiful section, and she's a complex character, and I'm excited to see what's going to come down the pipe for Nami. Now we got to talk about Usopp. Usopp is without a doubt the most average person that is a part of the crew, and in some ways that makes him almost the reader of the story, at least for me. I felt myself identifying with Usopp, and if it wasn't Zoro, it would be Usopp that would be my favorite character. I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, and Usopp feels to me like the Krillin of the crew. His lack of special ability is actually what makes him special. He has to be a lot more creative or has to have a great 100-yard dash because, you know, there's like an entire arc where he's just running, which somehow I loved. I found the Syrup Village arc just really, really satisfying. And mainly it's because Usopp goes from being not detestable, but kind of pathetic. Like you almost have pity on this guy who is always lying to the townsfolk. He is the guy who cried wolf, right? Pirates are coming. But also his little crew of kids, the Usopp pirates, it's laughable and he kind of seems pathetic. But then you see a deeper side of him, the good-natured side, where he's telling stories to Kaya, who is bedridden, and then being treated like just an absolute schmuck by the butler, who then we find out is Captain Kuro. But I feel like this little twist was the first time where One Piece kind of put me on my toes a little bit. And I said, oh, this Captain Kuro stuff is totally different than what I expected it to go. And Usopp came in, made a good stand for himself, and he's a great stand-in for us readers because a lot of us are also just average folk trying to do our best. Let's not forget our final crew member that we pick up in East Blue, and that is Sanji, our chef. I love the Barati arc. I thought it was awesome, and if it wasn't for Arlong Park and all of the backstory with Nami, this would have been my favorite. This does have my favorite battle, by the way. I will say that. But we need more chefs in fantasy, in manga, in all stories. Out of all the crewmates, Sanji has my favorite introduction because he refuses not to feed Jin, even though we know that that might, you know, empower him and Don Krieg to come in and destroy the Barati. And you're like, what in the world are you doing? But Sanji is a man of principle and he will not let you go hungry. It is his job as a chef to feed you. And I can get behind a man of complex principles. Sanji's backstory of being trapped on the island with Zeph and them kind of just hating each other. And then we find out that Zeph is actually given the food to Sanji and he comes over and sees when he's about to, you know, Sanji's about to take by force what Zeph has and sees that his leg's missing and the implications of what that means. Oh, how complicated can a relationship be? I mean, holy cow, everything about Sanji is complicated, from the Zeph stuff into the Jin stuff. And by the way, the Barati fight was my favorite fight of the entire saga. And it all kind of centers around Jin and his decision to throw Luffy a mask to save Luffy and to let himself perish. Now, it's unclear whether or not Jin dies, but I'll be honest, I'm going to assume he does because he is severely poisoned. And on top of that, we also see Sanji, who is actually very skilled, a great fighter, have mercy on Jin at times too. So Sanji's just a really complex character. The entire Barati arc really added a lot of layers and nuance to the story, and this is whenever my ears were perking up quite a bit. And then Arlong Park is where I was just in love. I want to see Sanji get to the all blue. With some awesome main characters and really incredible side characters, especially in Barati arc, you have, if you're the storyteller, you have to have compelling villains. You have to have someone to really make our good guys good. And I have to say, One Piece delivered on every single villain. Some were funny, some were very serious, some were daunting, but all of them were interesting. And that's the most important part. I love that Buggy shows up early and then we see him again at the end in Rogue Town. And what that tells me is that these villains feel like they have real motivations. Not just our protagonists, but our antagonists also have motivations. They have lives outside of the main story. While we are sitting here checking out Luffy and the crew growing and trying to get to the Grand Line, it really does feel like in parallel off screen, there are things happening, which makes this world feel alive and breathing. And that comes through so beautifully with the villains. My favorite villain from all of East Blue was probably Kuro. But if we can count him, I have to go with Captain Smoker, the big stogie out of the mouth. I don't know. There's something about that character model that I really, really liked. I am so excited to continue on to the next saga. And that Rogue Town arc at the very end, I know some people call it Rogue Town. I think it was Rogue Town in the manga. It added a whole nother layer of mystery. And I thought it was a perfect way to end East Blue and get me hyped up for the next piece. We have a lot of questions going forward. Multiple legendary swords, as we hear from Zoro. We have the Grand Line, and in itself, we've been waiting to get to this moment, and it feels like the Grand Line has a whole nother aspect to it that we haven't seen quite yet. I don't think we're ready, to be honest with you, and I hope Luffy takes a kind of he's not going to. There's no way. The All Blue, which I want to see, and I want that for Sanji, but the most amazing mystery that we have here is the fact that a guy named Dragon kind of calls off Captain Smoker, saves Luffy from execution, and speaks about Luffy in a way that kind of talks about destiny, that something bigger is at play here. Maybe something bigger than just one person or a crew of pirates, but something like worldly big. And I am very curious how this story is going to grow and become even more epic. I also have a little bit of a theory, and please do not tell me if I'm correct. I want to find out as I read through. But I feel like Dragon might just be the pirate king of old, Roger, who is expected to be dead. He's supposed to be dead. He had his head chopped off. Possibly there's some devil fruit that could make this happen, that he could have his head severed, he can come back, or he can be dead for a short amount. I don't know. But I get the feeling that maybe Dragon happens to be Roger, which is why he can see so much potential in Luffy. And maybe he's been expecting this. I mean, the devil fruit opens up a whole can of worms. And also, Red Hair Shanks, what's up with him? He gave Luffy his straw hat, which was cool to see the origin of that. I loved it. But Shanks seems like he's going to have a role to play later. You know, it's been 10 years since he gave Luffy the hat. Shanks is a legend on the Grand Line, it seems. And I wonder if people like Mihawk or, you know, even Kuro know him. I want to know more about Shanks' not just reputation, but his relationships on the Grand Line. And I have a feeling that we're going to find that out, hopefully in the next saga. And those are my brief overview thoughts on the East Blue. One Piece proved me wrong. I was very wrong. This is a story not only that I can kind of get through and enjoy, but it's one that I can see myself falling in love with. I have not been this enthusiastic about a story in any medium for a very long time, and I feel like I have so much ahead of me, and I'm just curious what's in store for the crew. Is the crew going to grow? Maybe. I have no idea. Now, if you felt like this was a little bit quick or a little bit too general, don't worry. From this point on, I am actually going to be breaking it down by arcs, not sagas. So there's going to be a lot more detail per episode. They might be even longer, really, if I get to really dive into it, which will be great. I think it'll make it a little bit more manageable, and I'll get to get out all my thoughts as I go through my journey of One Piece. So I would love to have you around for that. I plan to have these videos out pretty regularly because I can't stop reading One Piece. Whenever I get done with all the arc videos, I'll probably do an overall thoughts video about the sagas, and I will do a tier ranking of the arcs within the sagas. I think that would be a lot of fun. I hope that you'll join me on this wild ride through One Piece as I read through it for the first time. And it would mean the world to me if you loved this video or even liked it to hit like and subscribe. But I'll see you next time, y'all, on Dudes Talking Manga.